What's up, everyone? Tara Roberts here, and welcome into the Dear Miss Fantasy Show. We're the official mailbag show for Player Profiler. And we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. I had a bunch of stuff that I had planned to talk about, like, draft drama with Washington and Caleb Williams, whether or not he's going to Chicago, Super Bowl stuff. But quite frankly, this main topic that we've got here of sleepers, breakouts, and value picks has so much to cover. And we got a ton of mailbag questions. You guys were amazing with the mailbag questions this week. Like really, really good questions that we're going to have on here. So I don't think we can literally include anything else. We just got to do the sleepers, breakouts, and value picks and the mailbag questions because I'm like 99% sure that is all that we will have time for. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. We're going to kick things off right at the top with 10. I've got 10 sleeper breakouts and value picks for you. We're going to start off with the obvious one. I know you guys are going to beat me over the head with this one, but Jordan Love. Jordan Love is a value pick in 2024. Obviously a deep sleeper in 2023. Complete massive breakout. But despite finishing as QB5 overall, QB6 in average points per game, which is critical, right? Because a lot of times you'll get somebody that I think, sometimes Kirk Cousins was a guy that fell victim to this. You play a full season, in the past for Kirk Cousins, but you play a full season, you finish high in overall points, but in average points per game, it's a little bit, it's okay. It's a low end QB2, a little bit underwhelming, but averaged 19 fantasy points per game, just over 19 fantasy points per game. He had just 3 games below 15 fantasy points. So there wasn't a lot of volatility in it. He was incredibly consistent in terms of a nice floor, good upside, rushing stats that could pull him through. Currently, he is going as QB 11 on Underdog, ranked QB 13 in Fantasy Pros ECR. He is my QB 11. So this is not by any means saying that his ranking is off. There's just so many strong quarterbacks, strong QB1s that we have that have emerged. So you love to see it. The league just kind of tilting in this direction of having these strong quarterbacks, and it creates a lot of value. Last year we're thinking, okay, we gotta dive into quarterbacks early. We got to make sure we grab one of the top players, and that's just, you don't technically have to do that anymore. There's so much value to be had, and Jordan Love going as between QB 11 and 13 is incredible value, insane value. Again, everyone ranked ahead of him for the most part, maybe one exception, is very deserving of being ranked ahead of him. But again, it just kind of goes to the justification of not taking a quarterback early, grabbing strong players at those other positions, getting yourself those elite wide receivers, because there's very strong, in terms of mock drafts that I've been looking at and doing, very strong receivers and running backs in those mid rounds. Not taking a quarterback early, it's just not entirely necessary in 2024. But again, we're talking about a guy that finished as QB5 in an offense where touchdowns were literally going through him at a rapid rate. They will not be changing the offensive philosophy here. We don't have any major things that we have to worry about. The receiving core, not changing. His young receivers, all of them staying, and they're going to continue to grow. This is a fantastic situation for Jordan Love. So if you're looking for a guy to draft as a low-end QB1 and not have to grab those elite guys, again, highly recommend Jordan Love. Now, I've also got some rookies on this list, some incoming rookies on this list. This is not just veterans here. One guy in particular that I think is going to have fantastic value is going to be Rome Odunze. Now, obviously, everyone's eyes are going to be on Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. I mean, I posted earlier on Twitter that I was in the middle of a best ball draft, still in the middle of it. It's a slow draft. But I managed to snag both Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors in my little rookie, baby, young best ball team. And it was thrilling, and I love it. But as everyone is so focused on those top tier players, Rome is obviously somebody who's going to be falling a little bit, not super far back, but it's not super cheap, but it's not as aggressive if you're looking to invest in a rookie receiver and want that upside that they often bring in terms of being that, carry you at the end of the year kind of surge, those back half surges that you see from rookies. And Rome Odunze can be one of those guys. Why not? Elite size, athleticism, speed, agility, ball skills, routes are good, highly intelligent, yards after catch. Did we talk about his size? He is literally perfection. I mean, just goes to show you how incredible this receiving core, this wide receiver class as a whole is. That this is literally the wide receiver 3 for the most part. Sometimes he's tilting back and forth with Malik Neighbors, but for the most part, wide receiver 3 in this class. And the reason why he's going a little bit further back and why you don't have to be so aggressive with him in comparison to a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. is because obviously, when we're looking at Marvin Harrison Jr., unless something goes kind of sideways in the draft, like Chicago decides that they want to take Marvin Harrison Jr., they make a trade and they're still in there and they take him, or they take him first overall, something crazy, I don't know. But unless something goes sideways there, Marvin Harrison Jr., for the most part, is kind of locked into going to Arizona. So obviously him going into there, not a stacked receiving core, directly into wide receiver 1, his ADP is so aggressive. Malik Neighbors has that LSU appeal, right, that everyone wants to. They're chasing the Jahmyr chase allure, and he's obviously very strong. So Odunze is just someone who, if you're looking to make that rookie investment here, can absolutely be a strong value pick in redraft, in best ball as well. The only thing that could go sideways is if he ends up getting Jackson Smith in Jigbud, if you know what I mean. But that's okay. Talent will always find a way. Let me say what's up to the chat real quick. What's up to Rob Thomas? How you doing tonight? We got Ralph Delgado. Yeah, you had talking about Jordan Love, having him as your QB1 all season last season. I had held him in a dynasty team last year. Yeah, still hold them now, obviously. But yeah, had him in Stafford. So yeah, theoretically, Jordan Love was operating as my QB1 very often throughout the season. So yeah, I mean, it was just especially my Scott Fishbowl team. That was one. It was literally just like a cheat code, right? So absolutely love him. Yeah, Ralph Delgado, never pick a quarterback till like rounds 5 through 7. I will say that last year I did have a lot of Jalen Hurts, and that was fine. Had one. I never draft Patrick Mahomes. I did last year on one team. So maybe I was the bad luck there in terms of his down year. And then one more chat. Think Drake May will be good as quarterback. Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see. We're going to learn so much at the combine, because I'm still not 100% convinced that Drake May goes second overall. Not any knock to him, but I think there's so much volatility in terms of how these guys that are following behind Caleb Williams and how they could, any one of them could show up and have an Anthony Richardson kind of push. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that works out. Oh, man. Moving on to my next. Actually, before I move on to my next sleeper pick here, which is going to be a wee bit controversial. So before we dive into the controversy, I already know it's a wee bit controversial. Let's hear a little word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Rival Fantasy. Rival Fantasy, the coolest fantasy platform not enough people know about, but they will once I'm done, baby, because they're always innovating. They just rolled out seasonal leagues. We set them up for patrons, for our listeners, and they funded over $1,000 in payouts. That's what Rival's all about. They're always innovating. They already had the fantasy book where you can take overs and unders, stack them up, multiply your payout, but then they added challenges so you can set your own lines and put them out there for the community, and then you can browse the community's lines and say, hey, this guy's crazy, I'm going to take the other side. It's cool. And they have fantasy bingo. Rival Fantasy is reminding me how much fun I can have with fantasy football, and use that promo code PLAYER. The promo code is PLAYER. They give you a $100 instant deposit match plus $25 plus a free play. That promo code is PLAYER for up to $125 in deposit bonus and a free play. You can't beat it.
Fantasy bingo is fun, by the way. All right, diving back into the players. We're on number 3 here. I should have numbered these, but off the top of my head, this is number 3, right? And go ahead, let me know in the chat because I did this on Twitter and there were certainly some opinions on it, and I don't blame you guys for having those opinions. But it's Jameson Williams. It's Jameson Williams. Genuinely speaking, when we're talking about Jameson Williams, this is a pure talent finds a way kind of situation for him. I talked about this on the previous show. Again, got a ton of pushback because not too many people were feeling the thoughts around him being having a breakout season because of the fact that there are so many weapons on that team. But let's be clear on one thing: breakout is relative. Breakout is a breakout from what he's done. Breakout doesn't mean that you have to be Justin Jefferson, right? But I do believe that he has sneaky, true wide receiver 2 upside. Can he be a wide receiver 1? No, probably not. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the volume that he is getting, that's just not changing. But again, I will say it again and just emphasize it because we did talk last week about this. The big thing with Jameson Williams is that he has the combination of talent without any issues, right? Compare him to someone like Kadarius Toney, who has talent, but has obviously, issues in terms of his consistency, his being sloppy, being unreliable. Jameson doesn't have any of those issues. So when you're looking at a guy that has all the talent in the world, he just needs the opportunity. He doesn't have an issue with running the wrong routes. He doesn't have an issue with a whole bunch of jobs. He's not over there, Kadarius Toney, Quentin Johnston. It's purely just a limited usage situation. The talent is going to find a way here. So the talent is going to push itself ahead of Josh Reynolds. So right off the bat, we've already got him making that kind of leap there. He can be used in a variety of ways. We saw kind of as they were, making that, not even making up throughout the playoffs, as he was starting to gain a little bit more trust in that offense, that they were utilizing him in different ways. You didn't see it having to be that one big play right there. He didn't have to be that one big threat. And if we can just get a little bit more targets his way, he's got the talent and the dynamics there in the dynamic ability to be able to make that push. So again, this is a guy who we're not drafting extremely high. We're taking a chance here that his talent can push himself to being the 4th option in that offense. And while 4th option does not sound appealing, when it's an offense like the Detroit Lions that is pushing high volume, even when the defense has been strong in the past, even when they've not been, they obviously had some issues throughout the season, but even when they've been strong in the past, they were still having teams pushing aggressively on them. The offense had to push high volume just because their games trended that way. So that's the benefit of the situation here. It's not the 4th option in Carolina. It's the 4th option in Detroit. There's a big difference there. So I do still believe that there's a strong possibility that he can make some headway there and be a strong sleeper pick there. Yeah, very under the radar. Wide receiver 3 is a good aim for him with some low-end wide receiver 2 upside. We're going to move on to somebody who's a little bit also a deeper pick as well. Not super deep anymore. He was deep last year, but now he's on the radar. It is Dontayvion Wicks. I don't think the Packers can keep him off the field. And of all the guys on this list, Dontayvion Wicks is absolutely my favorite. I will walk away with Dontayvion Wicks in all my drafts. This is another situation of a ton of mouths to feed in Green Bay. That's a big fantasy problem. It's a great problem for Jordan Love to have, which is why he's on that list, but it's problematic for us because we're trying to figure out who is going to be able to get consistency within this offense. At tight end, you've got 2 guys that are kind of canceling each other out in terms of Musgrave and Kraft, eating into each other's upside. At receiver, we've got Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Dontayvion Wicks. We've even seen other players step up like Bo Melton, and they're so deep and they're so young. And they've all got upside and they've been reliable within the offense. But Wick's emergence obviously was very tied to Christian Watson's injury last year. The Packers used him very similarly. So when Watson was absent, obviously, there was just a direct opportunity for Wicks. But when he was on the field and when he was given those opportunities, he showcased so well and he thrived I don't think that he is a talent that you can just kind of leave untapped and out there. I think they'll find ways to work in all receivers. I don't know that Christian Watson's upside will be incredibly high. Now, granted, he could be in line for a bounce back year when healthy. So this is not a fade Christian Watson take. It's just a take that I think we'll see more Dontavian Wicks involved than you would expect. He'll continue to see opportunities, and while his touches may be limited, they will be high value opportunities. And I think that's the key there as well. You're grabbing this guy, he's going to be on your bench. He's going to be someone that occasionally, if you've got issues, you can be able to throw into your lineup and know that he's somebody that has big play capability. And then on top of that, should an injury happen within the Packers receiving core, and injuries happen in every receiving core, it'll open up the opportunity for him. And at his ADP, he is absolutely worth it for sure. I've said a lot of wide receivers here, so I'm going to talk about a running back that I will have a lot of again this year because I had a ton of him in 2023. It is Chase Brown, who is my sneaky handcuff for 2024. I was 1 year ahead on Chase Brown. I was very pro Chase Brown last year. Right concept, wrong year. Injury situation didn't help for him. He missed a decent amount of time, but although it took nearly the entire season, he did finally emerge as a complementary back to Joe Mixon, and he showed very well. Showed exactly why I drafted nearly 100% of him in my Dynasty leagues and deeper redraft leagues, because he's very well-rounded. Excellent hands, receiving upside, and when you're looking at him compared to all of the other Bengals running backs, he just popped. I think he immediately puts himself directly into that handcuff role, clear handcuff role for Joe Mixon. And it's a role that offers three down opportunity. And he has that 3-down skill set. It is perfect. It is exactly what we are looking for. And I will also say this, for best ball purposes, he could also have stronger relevancy beyond a handcuff and potential committee work. I don't think this is going to happen. Now, this is not me predicting that this is going to happen, but in theory, Joe Mixon could be a cut candidate. I think that if they do come to him and say, hey, we need you to take another pay cut, I think he will take another pay cut in such a competitive free agent market right now. It would be incredibly risky. So I don't know if this is not a guaranteed kind of situation, but it's just a hey, maybe when we're looking at our drafts, particularly in best ball right now, you could be drafting a player that could be a lot more relevant than you might assume once we get into the season. So Brown is somebody who could pay off big. We're going to go along with another running back here. Don't judge me. Yes, I've got 3 Packers on this list. I swear to God, I'm not biased. I am wearing a green shirt. It might be a Green Bay shirt. I'm not going to lie. It's Aaron Jones. It's Aaron Jones. He's still got it, guys. He's got it. Yes, I've got 3 Packers on this list. Don't judge me. You judged me in 2023 on this one, and I was right. So at this point, just trust me on it, right? Aaron Jones, obviously, the overall 2023 season was wildly disappointing. The hamstring injury was just outrageous. He finished as RB37 in PPR, dealt with that hamstring injury throughout the season, caused him to miss a ton of time. And even when he was active, many games, was clearly limited, held on a snap count. And from a fantasy production or just general production, and just generally in production, was just terrible in terms of being able to actually provide any upside. It was the first year that Jones finished outside of the top 10 at his position since 2018. It's 2024. 2018 was the last time that had. Crazy. And because of that, and because of his age, because he was getting on up there, he's 29, fantasy managers might be looking at him and thinking that, hey, this is it. He's reached the cliff. Age caught up with him. 2024, he's probably going to struggle and deal with injuries, and we don't want to invest in him. But I will caution you on that because, as you guys know, because you're astute, we got to include the playoff games here. Once he finally got healthy, Jones finished the season, including the playoff games, obviously, with 5 straight 100-yard performances on the ground, averaging 20 carries per game. Once he was healthy, he was Aaron Jones. And if you guys followed me in the past offseason, in 2023 offseason, you know that Keenan Allen's bounce back was one of my biggest takes. I genuinely believe that when you see an injured player, an older injured player, come back towards the end of the season and thrive once he's actually healthy, you have to pay attention to it, because what that's telling you is that you've got confirmation that it's not regression, it's not age that caught up to him, it's not hitting a cliff. It was literally just an injury. And the player still has plenty of juice. That's what happened with Keenan Allen, obviously. That 2022 hamstring injury just really hampered him. Once he came back from that, he was a top 5 wide receiver during that 2022 season. And heading into 2023, healthy, we had the resurgence from him. Again, hamstrings get the best of us, like literally all of us. I know I've had like 5,000 hamstring injuries from barely doing anything. Old, young, it gets you. Got Justin Jefferson. But again, much like Keenan Allen, Aaron Jones performed at such an elite level when he was finally healthy. So the Packers could be without A.J. Dillon as well next year. Signs are looking very strong. If you're hearing the rumors that Aaron Jones is going to remain with the Packers, so that's a lock. We don't have to worry about that. Just speaking from a Packers fan perspective, he's a guy that could technically be a lifer there. Seems very content to stay there. Seems very unconcerned with money, and is being very team friendly in terms of his salary. So if we get Aaron Jones back, no A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones 100%, with a little bit added in there, obviously, from some of those other young supplementary running backs, I still think that we're going to have a strong Aaron Jones bounce back season, and at value for his ADP, it is going to be well worth it. I'm going to jump back to wide receiver here. Another one that I think I categorize this one as a breakout, not a sleeper, not a technically a value pick, yes, but really, really here keen on a breakout for Rashid Shaheed, stepping in finally as the true wide receiver 2 in New Orleans. I'll be 100% honest. I have zero clue what the Saints are planning to do regarding their salary cap. It's a hot mess. It's unreal. It's crazy. I feel kind of bad for them. They clearly cannot kick the can down the road even any further. This is it. This is it. So unless their plan is to restructure Michael Thomas into literally oblivion and retirement, he can't be on the team in 2024. Him not being on the team means that Rashid Shaheed will step up as the permanent wide receiver 2 for the Saints. And again, because they are financially destitute, we don't have to worry about them hitting free agency and signing one of these highly competitive wide receivers. Obviously, we talked about, maybe 3 episodes back, or 2 or 3 episodes back, talked about the free agent market and the fact that we've got a ton of big names at wide receiver. We'll kind of talk about one in particular if we get to the mailbag question, or mailbag questions. But no one else really stepped in as a consistent wide receiver 2 for the Saints. And I think that we could be looking at this nice year 3 breakout for Rashid Shaheed. He's been a boom bust player because he is used as a deep threat. His production, obviously, it's been up and down. That makes him unreliable in terms of a fantasy asset because we can't predict when those big plays will come. It makes him a volatile flex option, but I think it's very possible that he could step into an expanded role here. We still need to hear some news. I would like to hear some, as we go further into the offseason and get into training camp and whatnot, we need those rumors of him stepping up as a wide receiver 2. But in terms of if you're drafting best ball now, it's a good opportunity to take that swing on him and see if he can be a guy that can step up that breakout season. I'm feeling it for him this season in 2024. Another guy that I think could have a little breakout here, a little mini breakout here. It'll be interesting. Khalil Shakir, was kind of said his name backwards there. Khalil Shakir. It's hard to believe that Khalil Shakir, this was just year 2 for him, because remember back in 2022, when he was in his rookie year. We were kind of looking at him as one of those, those deeper dynasty opportunities for him to step into that slot role for the Bills because it was kind of vacant. There wasn't a true slot receiver there. They still had like Cole Beasley. It was kind of like up. I think maybe like Jamison Crowder was there in that year. I don't know. Like it was a weird year where we thought that maybe Khalil Shakir could be able to step up. He did not step up and didn't really get the opportunity to play, unfortunately. In 2023, we didn't really have any high expectations for Shakir with them drafting Dalton Kincaid to presumably fill more of that slot role. That was correct. But despite that, Shakir did pop in 2023. And we can walk through a nice little timeline of that to kind of understand that progression and why that it happened. Weeks 1 through 7, Shakir had a maximum of one target per game outside of week 7. Ironically, that was the week that Dawson Knox got hurt. Now, Knox's removal from the lineup put more targets on Dalton Kincaid, but in turn, that also pushed Khalil Shakir into a larger role. And he showed well. He had several strong performances, fantasy points ranging from 3 in a tough matchup with Denver secondary to as high as 20 fantasy points. He showed upside. He showed reliability. He showed well. He earned more consideration, in my opinion. When Dawson Knox returned, obviously, Shakir's role went sideways again. Everyone's role went kind of sideways when Knox was, inserted back into that offense. But Shakir did close out the season strong with 6 receptions for 105 yards against Miami. We've also got the possibility of Gabe Davis exiting in free agency. We're going to talk about that a little later. Things could open up for Khalil Shakir. All he needs is the opportunity to get on the field. So I love this one, especially when you're looking and considering what the ADP will be. My God. This was definitely a nice deep sleeper pick here. Comment there from Ralph. Yeah, Shakir could be a good flex player next year. If Gabe is out, the opportunity is there for sure. Now we're going to move on to another one before I take a sip of water here. Our next, we finally got a quarterback on this list. Finally a quarterback here. I think this is going to be a little mini breakout year for Bryce Young. This one is very simple for me when I'm looking at Bryce Young. We've got the hire of Dave Canales for Carolina. And again, we've got Baker Mayfield, who is just coming off of his strongest performance, strongest year under Dave Canales. We obviously have Geno Smith in the prior year that had his, I won't even say resurgence, we had his ascendance under Dave Canales. I think it's pretty clear at this point that Dave Canales is a quarterback whisperer. He knows how to develop and fix, and he's going to get in there. Excuse me. He's going to get in there and do it with Bryce Young next year. I love this hire so much for the purposes of what Carolina needs to do. I know some people are kind of sketchy in terms of, obviously there's a lot of stuff that Carolina's got to fix. They have to go out and get a wide receiver 1. They got to try and go out there and, woo T. Higgins and, try and get somebody to truly step up and be that young wide receiver 1 that can help push Bryce Young to that next level. Because obviously when we're looking at Baker Mayfield, having Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, that's a big benefit. Looking at Geno Smith, having DK and Tyler Lockett, that is a big benefit here. So you need the weapons. You need the weapons there. I think they're going to do it. But I think this is a great time for Bryce Young to make that developmental leap. And he's a fantastic, great late flyer in 2024 for deep leagues and a strong play for QB2 in super flex leagues. Again, for those who like to wait on drafting their second quarterback, I'm a big fan of doing that. You find the right one. It pays off extremely well. And he could be a strong QB3 as well. So when we're looking at Bryce Young, you're not going to have to pay up for him. He's going to have strong development this year. And we know that he is incredibly talented here. So I just love the situation for him. And he is coming in super cheap in terms of where you were having to draft him. So particularly in Superflex, fantastic value. Now, speaking of Superflex, I've got another quarterback. We're going to go on the quarterback hot streak here. And we're going with another rookie in Jayden Daniels. I think Jayden Daniels could be a super flex cheat code this year. Now, again, relying on rookie quarterbacks always feels terrifying. Last year, it felt a little bit better, obviously, but there's a lot of mystery around the true upside of these rookie quarterbacks and the reliability here. But when I'm looking at Jayden Daniels, it is the perfect combination for what you are looking for somebody that can have that rookie breakout here. He's got the big arm. He's got the rushing upside. It's that combination that we are looking for. And what makes this even better is that this is not an Anthony Richardson situation. Anthony Richardson's ADP got out of control last year, and it was justified. I'm not like saying that it shouldn't have gotten out of control, but it did get out of control in terms of where people were drafting him, reaching to make sure that they got him. It was rightfully so, with tiny sample size there, but Anthony Richardson was a fantasy monster for the short period that he did play. But again, that's not going to happen with Jayden Daniels, because we talked about this earlier in terms of how stacked quarterback is this year. There is not a situation where Jayden Daniels is going to be somebody where you have to aggressively draft him. He's going to be a guy who you're going to be drafting as a low-end QB2 at best, right? We talked about Jordan Love and the fact that he's going around QB12. Guys going ahead of him, that does not include guys like Tua, Trevor, Deshaun Watson, or the guys returning from injury like Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, or guys that, maybe don't have that, that rushing upside, but they're incredibly reliable passers like Jared Goff, Matt Stafford. So when we're looking at a guy like Jayden Daniels, similarly to Bryce Young, we know this ADP is not going to shoot through the roof. So we're talking about a low-end QB1, QB3, that is going to be someone that we can wait for, draft late, and super flex leagues can literally be that cheat code to where you can wait, and gain that positional value elsewhere. So keep your eye out on Jayden Daniels. Obviously, there is a lot to shake out in terms of where he is going to land. There's a possibility that he could be in New England if things stick as they are traditionally going with the mock drafts, but there's a lot of time. It might not be New England. We don't know for sure. So keep your eye out on that. And even if it's, New England, it'll just push the ADP back even further. So he'll literally be a QB3 that you draft at value. All right. Moving on to, all right. Was that 10? Yeah, that was 10 right there. We got through that pretty good there. All right. Those are our 10. Let's recap that real quick, just in case anyone missed the earlier ones. It was Jordan Love, Rome Odunze, Jameson Williams, Dontavian Wicks, Chase Brown, Aaron Jones, Rashid Shaheed, Khalil Shakir, Bryce Young, and Jayden Daniels. Now we're going to move on to some mailbag questions here. Again, this was you guys were on it with your questions. And if you have any questions as well, you can always drop them in the chat right now. But you guys were on it with the excellent mailbag questions. This first one was such a damn good question. From Joko 919901. If you were a NFL GM looking for a cheap reclamation project or diamond in the rough type of backup, would you choose Mac Jones or Zach Wilson? Such a good question. And let's break it down. Mac Jones has shown upside, and you could argue that he had no weapons. Play calling was a hot mess. Did he really have any chance of succeeding in the Patriots offense? Probably not. And if he was real talent, he could have pulled through. But at the same time, you kind of can look at it and make the excuse there. But at the same time, I don't know if there's any true diamond in the rough potential there for Mac Jones. He can certainly be moved into the right role and develop as, I don't want to say game manager, because that's like the hot topic right there, the game manager hot topic, that he could, be molded into. But I don't know if he's really the guy that will ever lead you to a Super Bowl. But then when you're looking at Zach Wilson, you can also make that same argument for him that Zach never really had a fair shot, and he was placed in a dreadful situation. Again, not only poor play calling, but terrible offensive line, running for his life. I still have big question marks if Aaron Rodgers really could have made it through. If the Achilles didn't happen, could he have even made it through half a season behind that line? He's used to something better than that. So when we're looking at Zach Wilson, we can make those same exceptions. We know Nathaniel Hackett is trash, right? And I'm not entirely convinced that Mike LaFleur is really something special in terms of developing a quarterback. We don't have any evidence of it. So again, I don't know if Zach ever really was placed into a situation where he could be the best that he could be. And he did show some improvement this year. He improved in accuracy. He showed some grit. And most importantly, I feel like he showed emotional growth. I know that's weird to say in terms of, like evaluating a quarterback, but he did need to be humbled, right? We saw it in him that he needed to be humbled a little bit. And he did show emotional growth. So I will give him that. We know that the talent is there. If I'm putting apples to apples and saying who was more talented naturally between Zach Wilson and Mac Jones, I would say Zach Wilson. So Zach strikes me more as the type to have that Baker Mayfield type of progression where we know the talent is there. It's just, can somebody truly unlock you and put you in the right situation? Mac Jones strikes me as, ascending into his Alabama career backup role, that happens so often with them. I'm sorry, that's not the Clemson hater in me, I swear. It happens. But yeah, so I lean towards Zach Wilson. I would prefer to have Zach Wilson. Do you feel more comfortable with Mac Jones as a backup that would be capable of stepping in and being competent? Yes. Do you feel more confident that Zach Wilson has the talent that can be molded and developed in the right situation? Yeah. So Zach. 100%. I see the chat agrees right here. Yes. Zach Wilson, the one who I think if I were an NFL GM, I would be looking at as the better opportunity for someone that I could find a little diamond in the rough with. Next question from Hemi Brown. Can we talk about Falcons players and thoughts on them with the new head coach? Right off the bat, I think Raheem was an excellent hire for them. I love congruency when teams are already planning to have, because half the battle sometimes is like contentious situations between coaching staffs and GMs. And so I love the congruency of them bringing over the fellow Ram and Zach Robinson for the offense. So it's a good sign. That's a good sign that they plan to move forward in implementing schemes from Sean McVay. So we're happy about this. We're moving. This is a better direction than Bill Belichick. So this is a really good hire for them. Signs are pointing up, in my opinion. I have been very pro Drake London. He has flashed way too much upside to dismiss him. If he gets the combination of a coach and quarterback upgrade, like we got the coaching upgrade. We just need the quarterback upgrade. We know for sure Atlanta is going to get a quarterback. It's just a matter of, are they trading up in the draft to get someone? Or are they trying to, or are they taking whoever they can get at their position? Or are they dipping into the free agent market, which is not super flashy, but obviously there's Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson should be presumably a free agent as well. So there's possibility there. But either way you slice it, they're going to get a quarterback upgrade. And when we're looking at Drake London, his ADP was super high last year. Not like ridiculously high, but it was on the upper side. It was on the upper side for sure. And because of the way that last year shaked out, he's obviously getting that kind of push off in ADP. And there's no way that he's going to dip into the top 24. So you're not having to draft him as a top 24 wide receiver. So right off the bat, you're already getting value. So Drake London, definitely, I could have included him as a strong value pick. Once we start factoring in rookies because right now rookies, because like if you look at Fantasy Pros ECR, some people aren't really including rookies or haven't moved them up, which kind of messes up their ADP. Once we start getting those guys really pushed up and included, Drake London's ADP really could be like wide receiver 30 or even worse. So the value is like just screaming at that point. So I do anticipate like I would walk away with a ton of Drake London in drafts. Bijan, top 5 back, any way you slice it. You're feeling more confident with him. With Arthur Smith gone. Kyle Pitts, I'm not sure this favor really hires him for a breakout. That's the only one that I'm kind of looking at. I'm just like, I don't know. At least the ADP is nice. It's fallen back a ton. So you can take that into consideration. Got a question here. Let's show it from Derek in Rookie Dynasty Leagues. Ooh, good question. I love how I read the question and then stop and ask and tell myself whether it's a good question or not. In Rookie Dynasty Leagues, would you trade your 112 and 27 for Drake London? Yeah, I would do that. I know it's I know it feels painful right now doing that because of the fact that at the 112, there are so many strong receivers. I guess maybe it depends on when you are drafting, whether you're drafting pre-draft, pre-NFL draft or post-NFL draft, because at least post-NFL draft, we'll know for sure exactly where some of those guys are going to be, some of those other guys like the Brian Thomases and whatnot, and whether or not where they're going to be falling in terms of their, late first round picks. So, all that said, assuming this is super flex, all that said, the 112 could be something strong, but I would make that trade just because when we're looking at Drake London, you got to remember the draft capital that Atlanta put into him. I know you hate to say like draft capital, but you got to remember the type of receiver that he is in terms of talent, how he was drafted, how the league as a whole valued him. He's literally just half decent quarterback away from potentially being a top 10 receiver. The upside has been there. It's literally just been an issue of consistency in targets for him. It's so yes, it is super flex. Ooh, and tight end premium. Oh, tight end premium does make it kind of interesting there because we do get some guys second round that we could be grabbing. But I would make that trade. I would. I know it feels that maybe it feels like a lot because of the way that this draft class has shaped out, but that is how high I am on Drake London and how supportive that I have been for Drake London. So yeah, good question. Very good question. All right. Moving on to the next next mailbag question from JD Zaddy. Do you consider inconsistent players like Gabe Davis a potential breakout if they're consistent? And do you have any favorite free agent landing spots as well? So first of all, I talked earlier about said we'd talk about Gabe Davis a little bit here, and this was the question where we're talking about Gabe Davis. I wish that I could take an aggressive stance on Gabe Davis. Because the problem is that Gabe could be a diamond in the rough. I say diamond in the rough. That's like a Freudian slip because we were just talking about that. But technically, yes, he could be a diamond in the rough in this free agency class. And the reason for that is because when I'm looking at the wide receiver free agents, I think Michael Pittman Jr. is going to stay with Indianapolis. I think that Mike Evans will stay with Tampa Bay. So that leaves us with T. Higgins, obviously getting the big contract. And then remains Calvin Ridley, Marquise Brown, and Gabe Davis. I think that Gabe Davis could be the Christian Kirk of this group. Like, go with me on it. The guy that when Christian Kirk was in Arizona and got that massive contract from Jacksonville, everyone was like, why did they give them that? Well, they had to give him that because they were a bad team and they had to convince somebody to come over and be their wide receiver one. I feel like Gabe is a guy who, if a team can't convince Calvin Ridley to come, right, assuming that Jacksonville lets him walk, and Marquise Brown has been such a question mark, assuming that Gabe Davis could be the guy that a team that's bad but desperately needs a wide receiver one goes out and pays above expectation to take a chance and see if he could be a wide receiver one. I think he has the potential to be more than a big play receiver. The landing spot is very critical, but I think the potential is there. Yeah, Gabe is Gabe. Any good for comment? Gabe gave so many headaches last season. So much potential, but very inconsistent. Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think what maybe teetered me in terms of wondering if the consistency is so aggressively on him is that before the season started, the Bills acknowledged that they wanted to and needed to get better targets to Gabe Davis, that playing using him for literally just deep ball threats just wasn't effective. And they kind of tried, but their offense as a whole, just in the first half of the season, really struggled with finding its identity. Consistency was an issue for Stefon Diggs. Upside was an issue for Stefon Diggs. So part of me kind of wonders, was Gabe Davis 100% the problem? Or did they just have a little bit of an issue figuring out how to utilize him? The potential is there. The potential is there, though. I do think that he will sign with another team. That is the key there. So yeah, when we're looking at him and the possibility, and his ADP is very friendly right now for draft, best ball drafts. So, and value is, decent in terms of if you're looking to make a dynasty trade and take a little risk there. I know that's frustrating, especially because there's so much volatility in him, but I do think the potential is there. And then the second part of the question there, favorite free agent landing spot. It feels weird to say this, but the favorite free agent landing spot for me is the running back position in Dallas. I think that they move on from Pollard. We know that within the context of that offense, the running back can be highly productive. It's possible that they draft a running back because there's talent in this running back class, obviously, and there's value in this running back class, especially from an NFL draft perspective, because they're not having to go up there and draft him like draft running backs like Bijan and Gibbs or even Charbonnet. They can find good value a little bit later in the draft. So it's possible that they draft somebody and then run a committee with Rico Dowdle. But I think that Jerry Jones is going to make a flashy move here because that's just Jerry Jones. I know that money is a concern, but we could be in an interesting situation with Dak anyway. I think they find a way to make it happen, and I think they make a flashy sign at running back here. So one of my favorite landing spots is whatever running back lands in Dallas. We got two more questions here. One more question. No, two more questions from Satchel Robert. If Trey McBride is going in the 7th or 8th round, would you consider that extreme value? And then need a keeper? Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, or Breece Hall? Take your time. I've got all summer. All right, Trey McBride for sure. First of all, let's tackle that one. I 100% agree with him as a keeper, and that's saying a lot because I don't. There's value again. I'm not draft wise. More than likely for me, for the most part, I'm not going to be drafting one of the top 3 tight ends, more than likely, even though they are falling a little bit further back in terms of not having to go out and draft, your Travis Kelce in round 1. So we're getting that push back a little bit. But at the same time, I don't think that you have to be aggressive with tight end. But Trey McBride, 7th or 8th round value, yeah, for sure. I think that him as a keeper, you're getting a wide receiver 1 in Arizona, but we do have to remember that Kyler Murray was just getting back to being himself. Obviously, he didn't get the level of preparation offseason, mostly rehabbing. What I saw out of him last year, I didn't mind. I liked it. He came back to a decent level. A full offseason under him. I think we're going to get back to traditional Kyler Murray, and Trey McBride with him can still be a high volume guy, even if you get a Marvin Harrison Jr., which I think we're going to get. So I'm still 100% cool with Trey McBride. And then between Gibbs, Bijan, and Breece, I mean, my God, they're all top 5 backs for me right now. But Breece is my number 2, and that's not going to change. There's zero that can happen during the offseason to change Brees Hall as my RB2. So for him, it's Brees that I'm taking. Again, when we're looking at his body of work throughout the entire season, once he was fully recovered, he showed that he is committee proof, he is bad team proof, he is bad offensive line proof. He's just proof, right? There's no situation that Brees Hall cannot thrive in as long as he's healthy. And again, I'm not entirely convinced that Aaron Rodgers makes it a full season here. But what I do know for sure is that the Jets would be crazy if they didn't spend their entire offseason and draft, free agency. You have to go and fix your offensive line. You have to. You've got your quarterback now. You've got your running back. You've got your wide receiver. Like, just go and fix your offensive line. So if we get the combination of Brees Hall as he is healthy and everything that he showcased in the back half of the season, plus the addition of a improved offensive line, so we can actually get good yards per carry now with the receiving upside. Oh my gosh, Brees could be the RB1 overall, like, easily. He really could. I know, even overseeing it, like, he really, really could if they fix that offensive line. Even without that, he's my RB2. Just showcased. He's like, just let me not spend all this time like talking ad nauseum, because you guys agree, Brees Hall is Brees for sure. Yeah, Gibbs has good value, but Brees is just an absolute machine. You gotta love what you saw out of him once he finally got his legs and his health under him. And then one more question. Oh, and thank you so much. Shout out. I appreciate the comment here from Big Noggin. Love the show and the work. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. And then one more mailbag question here, and then we'll close things out. From Fantasy Football Go. Well, we just kind of talked about this one a little bit. But from Fantasy Football Goat Strategies, curious on your take on Jahmyr Gibbs for next season. I understand people are hesitant to truly anoint him as a top 5 back. He is RB5 for me right now. There are some things that could change that potentially. If Rachaad White gets zero competition, and Baker Mayfield returns, Mike Evans returns, their offense is essentially the same. We do have to worry about play calling being adjusted, obviously, with Dave Canales gone. But at the same time, I could see maybe an adjustment with Rachaad White, because I truly do believe in him. But more than likely, Jahmyr Gibbs is not going to fall further back than RB5 for me. Like, oh, and I see a question from Rick here. Like it would have to be something crazy, like, Raheem Mostert is cut, which is not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But like, let's say Raheem Mostert was cut and Devin Achane is now the official RB1 of Miami. That's something that could make me pull Gibbs back out of that top 5. But other than that, Jahmyr Gibbs, I feel very confident with him. And I understand the hesitation that people have. Obviously, David Montgomery is not going anywhere. He is still going to have a significant workload within that offense. He still gets the goal line touches, although David's a very generous guy. He literally pulled himself out of the lineup one time to make sure that Gibbs got his after he got it down there to the goal line. But Jahmyr Gibbs is just one of those elite talents and has that combination to where David Montgomery can still get his and still be a workhorse, mild workhorse type of running back, and they're splitting carries. But Gibbs is so electric that he does have the upside, and there's justification for drafting him as a top 5 back. So I'm very much so in on Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not someone that's going to be fading him for fear of Montgomery. I say you just draft Montgomery as well as a later value. Not later. He's still, decently going there as a low end RB2, but you still, if you want David Montgomery, draft David Montgomery as a nice little value pick right there. But Jahmyr Gibbs is still a top 5 back. Question here from Rick. Ooh, would you trade Achane for Spears, Ekeler, and Spiller? Oh man. Yeah, I think I would do that. it's tough because Achane obviously showed such extreme upside, but at the same time, the likelihood of Derrick Henry coming back is slim to none. So we've got Spears stepping into that RB1 role, right? And he showcased so well. And the concerns that we had around Spears were around the knee issue and whether or not he had the longevity to make it in this league. But at the same time, technically speaking, while you don't have the knee issue with Achane, you do have the same kind of longevity concerns with his size. So Achane, Spears, same kind of concerns as well. Then when we're looking at Ekeler and Spiller, I think Spiller's kind of a throwaway in that. I don't think Spiller is the guy. I think that the Rams, the other LA team, the Chargers. I think that the Chargers are, because they want to, when you consider, Harbaugh and the direction that they're going to head in that offense, they want more of a reliable running back. And I'm not sure. I don't think Spiller is that guy. So that's kind of a throwaway for me. We're looking at Ekeler. It's just a matter of whether or not you think that he can bounce back. I do think that he will be out of LA. I do think that he will be out of LA. I just don't think that the benefit that you're going to get here is that Spiller will step into a significant role. So it'll just be Ekeler somewhere else and whether or not he hit a cliff last year and if he'll be able to. But Achane, you're getting some value there in terms of Ekeler. And Spears, I think, it could be, it might feel a little weird, but I would make that trade. Yeah, I would make that trade there because you've got, in my opinion, Raheem Mostert is sticking around. So you still have to deal with that combined backfield of Mostert and Achane, and comparatively, Spears is going to be stepping into a clear RB1 role for sure. We were talking about Gibbs there. Yeah, Gibbs gets that Pollard role, in the Dallas situation with Zeke, Pollard 2.0 situation. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Sometimes maybe that's a little bit better for certain backs, right? Maybe I would love to see Gibbs, and I think he absolutely could be at a full-time back, but I think he can still be just as productive in combination with David Montgomery for sure. Before we close things out, just a few reminders here. Again, Player Profiler obviously has a ridiculous amount of shows every single day of the week. And Player Profiler today is expanding to 7 days a week on Player Profiler News. It is a new YouTube channel, so make sure you are looking at Player Profiler News. Obviously, host is Jack Kavanaugh. I'll be joined by Bradley and several other people, and it's just going to be a good show for you to tune in. So make sure that you're always staying connected with Player Profiler because the shows are coming in hot every single day, all throughout the day. If you're looking for consistent content from a fantasy channel, this is it for sure. For sure. But that wraps things up for us. I appreciate you all joining in. I appreciate the chat. I appreciate the questions. They were wonderful. Thank you for all the positive comments. Just closing thoughts again. If you have any questions, you can always hit me up on Twitter. Tag me if you want me to put anything in the mailbag show. Or tag me if you just have a question to ask me on Twitter as well at It's Tera Time, ITSTERATIME. If you're watching live, make sure that you are subscribed to Player Profiler and make sure that you are like the video as well. I would love that. And if you're listening to the podcast version, make sure you subscribe to that as well. That would be greatly appreciated. And drop me a comment on the YouTube video too afterwards. All right. I appreciate it so much. Good luck to all of you. Enjoy with your off-season stuff, obviously, but enjoy Super Bowl weekend. It is going to be so much fun. And I see the comment there from Big Noggin before I close out. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. You were recommended the show from Foxworth, and I see her comments on this. She's tagged me multiple times on Twitter, so appreciate that. I love you guys so much. So enjoy the Super Bowl. Enjoy the Super Bowl. We didn't even get time to do Super Bowl predictions. Good Lord, we're at an hour here. We had so much going on, but it was a good show here. Hope everyone has fun this weekend. And by the time we return after Super Bowl, we'll be officially in full-time off season. So we'll be going into free agency and draft stuff. So it'll be fun. So stick around. Again, appreciate y'all joining in. We'll talk to you again.